My favorite class this year was my anatomy and physiology class. And because I'm a very visual learner, the best way that I figured out how to study was to draw pictures and do a lot of anatomy art. So I'm just going to be showing some of the notes that I made and just a lot of diagrams that I drew, and to give a preview of what I learned this semester. One of my favorite units to learn about was the cardiac unit. I had a lot of fun drawing different heart models, and this first page shows how we learned about the different layers of the heart, and then just this general diagram showing all the different features inside of it. The second page shows how I learned about the blood flow through the heart, through the ventricles and the atriums, and all the different valves involved, and which is related to this next slide showing the cardiac cycle. This is just a part of it, but just kind of shows how complex the cardiac cycle is and how in depth we learned about that. This also ties into blood vessels, so here's a page just showing how we learned about the different layers in a blood vessel, and then just these 4 different kinds of blood vessels. Obviously there's many more, but we learned about muscular arteries, arterioles, venules, and veins. We also spent a lot of time on the lymphatic system, learning about what creates lymph, hydrostatic pressure, and colloid osmotic pressure, and what lymphatic capillaries are and what they do. My least favorite units that we did was the immune system, just because it was so complicated, and I only ended up putting this one little page in here just because the immune system is so complex and it's really hard to draw it out. So this is just one diagram showing B cell activation, but just shows a little bit how there's so much involved in the immune system, and you can't always draw all of it out, so it was a really difficult system for me. We also studied a lot of respiratory anatomy, learning about conducting and respiratory zones, upper and lower respiratory tracts. That diagram right there is of the nasal cavity, and then some different regions of the respiratory tract like the pharynx, the larynx. We talked about sound production of the vocal cords and what happens there, certain parts of the trachea and the bronchial tree and how they work together. We also studied the renal system. This is a diagram of the kidney, which is a lot more complicated than I expected it to be. You can see from the other 2 diagrams that there is a lot going on inside of the kidney, and we learned about that in a lot of depth. We also studied towards the end of the year the digestive system, and that was really interesting to learn about all the different organs involved, and just the different elements of digestion and absorption in each organ. This is a picture showing the histology of the digestive tract, which basically just means the different layers of the mucosa lining. We learned about what the enteric nervous system is. Basically, that's just a separate branch of the nervous system that controls digestion. And then here's a diagram showing the anatomy of the stomach. And this very last page is another part of the digestive system showing the liver and the gallbladder, just some diagrams of the liver, showing the anatomy of that, and then we learned about the blood supply to the liver and how that works with the gallbladder and how both of those have a role in digestion.